Hello, Pottstown Middle School. This is Mr. Lawrence, 8th grade social studies teacher, and I wanted to share with you on Election Day morning the results of our school's mock presidential election that you did last week on Google Forms. And before I share with you the answer as to who our school picked, I wanted to just give you a brief rundown of how the election works and how we pick a president in the United States of America. So every 4 years, we elect a president. So we are electing a president from January 20th, 2021 to January 20th, 2025. And it is a process that takes a little bit, and it is a little bit complicated. But basically, the United States Constitution, which is the basis for our laws, says that all you need to be in order to be the president is you have to be a natural-born citizen, you have to be at least 35 years old, and you have to lived here for the last 14 years. Well, that's millions and millions of people. So how do we narrow it down to one person to be president? Well, if you are interested in being the president, and it's a pretty tough job, you might become a member of a political party. And people in political parties have similar ideas and beliefs, and they often work in the government and run for elections, and they might run to be representatives or senators or governors. And if you become maybe a little bit more famous or experienced in some of those parties, you might try to run to be their candidate for president. So last winter, if you can remember back that far, back in January and February and March, there were all sorts of things in the news about who was going to run for president. And on the Republican side, the Republican Party, Republican is often seen as red on the TV graphics, they decided to go again with Donald Trump, who is the current president or the incumbent president. But the Democrats, often seen as the blue graphics, they had to pick who was going to be their candidate. And they had 29 different people running, and they had a bunch of debates and a bunch of what are called primary elections or caucus elections. And they ended up picking Joe Biden, the former vice president. And then in the summertime, back in July and August, they officially were what's called nominated at these conventions, which are these gatherings. So on the Republican side, they picked Donald Trump for president, and then Mike Pence as his vice presidential candidate. And Joe Biden for the Democrats was picked for president, and Kamala Harris, a senator from California, was picked to be his running mate for vice president. And then in the fall here, all through September and October, it's been something called the general election, where they're on TV with advertisements, they're going across the country giving speeches, they're sending out mailers to your house, people are putting up signs in their front yards, they had debates on TV and interviews, and finally getting down to the election day itself, where people in every state across the country will go into the voting booth and decide a person they want to be president. Or, because of this pandemic, we actually have a lot of people mailing in their ballots this year. Possible almost 100 million people already mailed in their vote or voted early. And then we're going to get to this other step, which is this technical way we pick a president, something called the Electoral College. That actually comes in December. And then in January, the new person takes office as president. But this thing here, this Electoral College, what the heck is that? What is that all about? Well, there's two ways to think of voting. There's something called a popular vote, which is just what it says, who has more people support them, and the electoral vote. If you look at the map of the last presidential election we had in 2016, Donald Trump actually had about 63 million people vote for him, while Hillary Clinton had about 66 million people support her. However, that did not matter in the end, because he had something called 306 electoral votes, while she only had 232 electoral votes. And basically, you have to think of it as a system of points. A system of points where the winner in each state gets all the points. So, in this map where she would have been blue and he would have been red, let's say the state of Montana. Trump won that state, so he got all 3 points in that state. So if you were a Hillary Clinton voter in Montana, your vote really didn't count for anything. But in Minnesota, Hillary Clinton won, so she got all 10 points there. So if you voted for Donald Trump there, your vote really didn't count for anything either, because the only thing that matters is the number of points added up from all of the states together to see who has a majority. And this magic number you will see in a lot of things in the news is 270 to win. So you need 270 to win out of these points. Now, how did this play out in our school? Because, how could we possibly do a system of points like this in a school? Well, we could divide it up by class, by homeroom, and give the homerooms that have more students more points than the homerooms that have fewer students. And then whoever wins in each class gets all of the points. So even if a class, let's say, had a vote that was 10-9 for Donald Trump, well, they would get all the points for that state. Doesn't matter whether you win by 1 or whether you win by 1,000,000. In West Virginia, maybe you win by 1,000,000. In Pennsylvania, maybe you win by 10 votes, but you still get all the points in that state. So I wanted to show you how it would have looked either way, the popular vote and the electoral vote in this election. So this is the big drum roll. Joe Biden would have won in our election of Pottstown Middle School students. So Joe Biden, the former vice president, and Kamala Harris, who is alongside him as his running mate, because you vote for them together as a ticket, they received 327 votes, or 61% of the votes at Pottstown Middle School. In fact, none of the above, so people voting for none of the candidates listed, received 124 votes, or 23%. Donald Trump finished behind that at 64 votes and at around 12%. Now, I mentioned there are other parties as well. They're called third parties. They're a little smaller, but there's 2 third parties that are on the ballots in enough states that they could actually win. Jo Jorgensen is for the Libertarian Party. She got 10 votes. Howie Hawkins is for the Green Party, and he got 10 votes. There's actually 31 different candidates that are on at least one ballot in a state somewhere, but these are the ones that are in enough states they could actually win. And we had 2 write-in candidates, one for a animated character and one for a rapper. But you're allowed to write in anybody you want. You have that right. You could write in Mickey Mouse. People write in all sorts of crazy things. We had 537 total votes. Now, what would it have been like if we had done the point system, that electoral system that I had talked about? What it would have been like if I had given points per class? Well, instead of a map of the states, we have a little map of the classes. So on this map here, all of the blue classes are classes won by Joe Biden. The gray are classes that didn't have any votes in it. So you see, Joe Biden won a lot of classes here, and the number underneath it is how many points I gave that class. And it was all based on how many students total there were that voted. So if your class only had 6 to 10 students vote, you only got 2 points. But if your class had 21 to 25 students vote, you got 5 points. So there's different number of points for each class. And Joe Biden, if you add them up, all the classes that he got points for, he would have had 106 points. None of the above actually won in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different classes. 7 different classes, none of the above actually had more points than Biden or Trump. And they would have gotten 20 points. Donald Trump did not win the most votes in any of the classes. So he would have had 0 points in the electoral system. Even though he had 64 people vote for him, he didn't win the majority of votes in any actual class. So he wouldn't have gotten any points in this system. So that's how, when you start to see the results on the TV tonight, they will have a map up of the screen of the United States, and they'll start to fill in states as blue or red to see who can get to 270 to be the next president. If you're interested in seeing some of the results for all of the classes, you can click on this Google Sheet here, and it will show you each class and the percent, as well as each grade and how each grade voted, as well as the electoral vote totals as well. Finally, I encourage you, if your parents are going to vote in person tomorrow, you're allowed to tag along as well if they allow you, because you're allowed as to go with them and to see what's going on. You can't vote yourself, obviously, but I remember when I was a kid, I would sometimes go with my parents and see them fill in the ballot, or see them see the process at work. And it is cool to watch the democratic process in action and see people from all walks of life lined up. Some of them will be there early in the morning, ready to go, waiting in line to cast their vote, something that we've done in our country for over 200 years. And the one other thing is, we might have to have a little patience. You might not know tonight or tomorrow who wins, because there's a lot of ballots being counted by mail this year because of the pandemic. But hopefully in a few days, we'll know the next president of the United States. Thank you for participating in our mock election, and hope you have a good day.